Reading, it's something most of us just do, right? We totally take it for granted. But for a kid, learning to read, that feels like pure magic. But what if I told you it's not magic? Not at all. It's a code that we can teach. And once you learn it, it unlocks everything. And today, yeah, we're going to crack that code. I mean, we've all seen it, right? A little kid really struggling with a book. But have you ever stopped to think about what's actually happening inside their brain? How do they go from seeing these weird black shapes on a page to understanding stories and big ideas? For the longest time, a lot of people just shrugged and said, it's a mystery. But it turns out it's not a mystery at all. It's actually a pretty precise science. So, for decades, there was this huge debate. I mean, a real battle. They even called it the reading wars. And it all boiled down to one big question. Should we be teaching kids to guess words using pictures and clues? Or should we teach them how to actually systematically decode the letters themselves? Well, after years and years of this, cognitive science and a mountain of studies have finally given us a clear winner. The debate's over, and the science points to a very specific roadmap. So what is this big scientific consensus? Well, it has a name, a pretty specific one, and it's basically the foundation for everything we're about to talk about. Okay, it's called Systematic Synthetic Phonics. You might see it called SSP. And look, this isn't just some new teaching trend that's going to fade away. We're talking about major education authorities. The UK, the US, Australia, they're all on board. They agree this is the most effective way. And it's not just an opinion. When researchers look at all the studies together, what they call meta-analyses, SSP comes out on top every time. Why? Because it just plain works with how our brains are wired to learn language. And I really want to stress this. This is not a, well, maybe kind of thing. The evidence is so strong, one expert called it one of the most conclusive findings in behavioral science. Just let that sink in for a second. In a field where experts are always debating something, this is about as close to a settled fact as you can possibly get. That's a huge deal. So to really get why this works so well, you need to know about this. It's a super simple but brilliant formula. It goes like this. Reading comprehension equals decoding times language comprehension. Think about it like a math problem. If either of those numbers, decoding or language comprehension, is 0, what do you get? 0. You can have the best vocabulary in the world, but if you can't decode the words on the page, you can't understand the text. It's that simple. And SSP is all about nailing that first crucial part, the decoding. Okay, so let's break down that name again. Systematic Synthetic Phonics. I know, it sounds a little technical, maybe a bit jargony, but those two key words, systematic and synthetic, they actually describe what's happening perfectly. Let's start with systematic. What does that mean? It means there's a plan, a logical, step-by-step sequence. We're not just throwing random letter sounds at kids and hoping something sticks. No, you start with the simple, most common sounds, and then you build on that, piece by piece. Every new sound they learn connects to the ones they already know, and it creates this amazing snowball effect. The knowledge just keeps growing and growing. All right, now for synthetic. This is the action part. It's all about blending or synthesizing. You take the individual sounds, like d, o, g, and you push them or fuse them together to make the whole word, dog. This right here, this is the engine of reading. It's that magic moment where the code gets cracked and a word just appears. And check this out. This is where you see the real power of this whole approach. Think about it. If you teach a kid to memorize, say, 10 words, they can read, well, 10 words. That's it. But if you teach them the sounds of just 10 letters, they suddenly have the power to blend and read hundreds of different words they've never even seen before. I mean, the bang for your buck, the return on investment, it's just off the charts. Okay, so let's get a little more granular. Let's look at the mechanics of this. How does this blending thing, this synthesizing of sounds, how does it actually work when a child is learning? Well, it all starts with a couple of key building blocks. There are just 3 quick terms we need to get on the same page with. First, a phoneme. That's just the smallest single sound in a word, like the k sound. Then there's the grapheme. That's the letter or sometimes a group of letters that we write down to show that sound. So for k, the grapheme could be the letter C. And finally, blending. That's the skill itself, pushing those phonemes together to say the word. And here's how it all comes together. So, a kid sees the letters C, A, T on the page. Step 1, they see the graphemes. Step 2, they say the phonemes for each letter out loud. K,
a, t. And then, step 3, they synthesize or blend those sounds together to say the word cat. And that's it. That is decoding in a nutshell. It's a system, it's repeatable, it's reliable, and it just works.
Okay, so knowing how to decode is the first step. But becoming really good at it, so fast and automatic that you don't even think about it, well, that takes practice. And here's the really crucial part. Not just any old practice will cut it. The kind of books you use, the materials, they have to be very, very specific. The right tool for the job is something called a decodable reader. Now, these aren't the kind of flashy, colorful storybooks you might be picturing. They're actually very specifically designed tools. They have one vital job: to build up a reader's decoding muscle and, just as importantly, their confidence. So what makes these books so special? Well, they're written in a really careful way. They only use the letter sounds that a child has already been taught, nothing more. This forces them to actually use their blending skills. They can't just guess by looking at the pictures or trying to figure out the story. And this is so, so important. It builds their confidence because they know, hey, I have the tools to read this. And it helps them build automaticity. That's the goal, right? To decode so fast and effortlessly that it feels like you're not even trying.
This really just lays it all out, doesn't it? The two different paths. On one side, you have SSP. The strategy is simple: sound it out. The tool? Decodable books. And the outcome? You build strong, lasting connections in the brain for reading. Then you have the other way, which encourages guessing from pictures and clues. This actually works against the decoding process. It teaches bad habits, like looking at the picture instead of the word. And those habits can stick with a reader for years. They can be incredibly difficult to undo later on.
Now, you might hear people criticize this approach. They'll say, oh, phonics is so boring and robotic. It's just sounding out words. It takes all the joy and meaning out of reading. But honestly, that's just a complete misunderstanding of what the goal is here. You see, SSP, it's not the destination itself. Think of it like the launch pad or the rocket ship that gets you to the destination. It is the absolutely essential, non-negotiable first step. Without it, all the complex, wonderful reading that comes later, it's just not possible. Let's bring that formula back for a second. Remember, RC equals D times LC. The whole point of SSP is to make that D for decoding so good, so fast, so automatic, that it takes up basically zero of your conscious brain power. And once that happens, all of that mental energy is freed up to work on the really fun part, the LC, language comprehension. That's where you get the story, the meaning, the ideas. That's where the real magic of reading is. And once that decoding becomes second nature, a whole new universe opens up. Suddenly, a reader can start to see the building blocks of words, prefixes, suffixes, root words. They can start recognizing those tricky, complex spelling patterns. They build a huge vocabulary. And finally, they get to achieve that deep, rich understanding of what they're reading. That's the real joy and the real power of being a reader. Yeah, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? SSP isn't the enemy of comprehension. It's the bridge you have to cross to get to comprehension. It's the solid foundation you need to build a whole lifetime of learning on top of. So, when you boil it all down, it's this. Reading is not some big mystery. It's a code, a solvable code. And the amazing thing is, science has already handed us the key. So the only real question left is, why aren't we making sure every single child gets that key?